Have you ever wondered what ancient texts are hiding in plain
Cite passages so bizarre, so mystifying that even the most devoted readers overlook them. Beneath the familiar verses about love, salvation, and morality lies a world far stranger than most expect. The Bible, often seen as a spiritual guidebook, contains moments that challenge not just faith, but imagination itself. This is not the version you read in Sunday school. This is the version that whispers from the edge of belief, daring you to ask, did that really happen? In the book of Numbers, a donkey speaks. Not metaphorically, literally. Balaam is stopped by an angel that only his donkey can see. When he beats the animal in frustration, the donkey opens its mouth and speaks to him, questioning his actions with unsettling clarity. The surreal image of a beast suddenly conversing with its master raises deeper questions. Was this a moment of divine intervention, or an allegory wrapped in ancient symbolism? Either way, the idea of a talking animal in sacred scripture resonates with both wonder and discomfort. Then there's the prophet Ezekiel. His visions make modern-day science fiction seem tame. He describes wheels within wheels full of eyes, accompanied by strange four-faced creatures, each bearing the face of a lion, an ox, a man, and an eagle. This isn't your typical biblical imagery. These descriptions sound like something out of a psychedelic, dream, or an alien visitation report, and yet they were recorded with solemn seriousness. Ezekiel wasn't trying to entertain. He was trying to describe the indescribable. His visions suggest an interface between human consciousness and divine reality, layered and incomprehensible. Another overlooked detail is when Elisha, the prophet who succeeded Elijah, calls down a curse upon a group of boys who mocked him for being bald. What follows is chilling. 2 female bears emerge from the woods and maul 42 of the boys. This incident forces us to reevaluate our assumptions about divine justice. Was this an overreaction? Or a cultural artifact reflecting how sacred authority was fiercely protected? Either way, the image of vengeful bears unleashed by prayer is a jarring departure from the God of mercy preached in many pulpits. Equally strange is the tale of Enoch. Unlike most humans, he never dies. Instead, the text simply states, Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. It's abrupt and enigmatic. No funeral, no final words, just disappearance. What does it mean to be taken by God without death? Later traditions, especially in apocryphal texts like the Book of Enoch, expand on this mystery, painting Enoch as a celestial scribe who witnessed the inner workings of heaven. But in the canonical version, the ambiguity remains, leaving readers with more questions than answers. In Genesis, Lot offers his 2 daughters to a mob to protect his angelic guests. It's a deeply disturbing story that confronts us with ancient hospitality customs, taken to an unthinkable extreme. The moral compass here seems broken by modern standards, and yet the Bible presents it without overt condemnation. This forces readers to wrestle with the complexities of historical context, ethical evolution, and textual silence. The Book of Judges gives us the tragic story of Jephthah, a warrior who makes a rash vow to sacrifice whatever comes out of his house if God grants him victory. He wins the battle, only to be met by his only daughter dancing to greet him. True to his word, he sacrifices her. No divine voice stops him. No substitute is offered. The story is told almost stoically, as if to highlight the devastating power of human vows and the silence that sometimes follows them. It reads like a moral warning hidden inside a horror tale. One of the strangest rituals described occurs in Leviticus. 2 goats are chosen, one is sacrificed, and the other, the scapegoat, is symbolically loaded with the sins of the people and sent into the wilderness. This is where our modern term scapegoat originates, but the ritual itself is haunting. The idea of transferring guilt onto an innocent being and banishing it evokes both justice and cruelty. It reveals an ancient attempt to externalize inner corruption, to physically remove sin from the community by placing it upon a living creature and watching it vanish into the wild. There is a bizarre moment in the New Testament too, when Jesus encounters a man possessed by demons who identifies himself as Legion, for we are many. Jesus casts the demons into a herd of pigs, which then rush into the sea and drown. This spectacle is loaded with symbolism, but it's also unsettling. The idea that evil could be transferred from a man to animals, only for them to self-destruct, raises deep questions about the nature of evil, identity, and mercy. It's a dramatic exorcism that leaves behind more than just a healed man. It leaves the reader with lingering unease. In Revelation, things escalate to apocalyptic proportions. One vision describes locusts emerging from the abyss. Not ordinary insects, but grotesque hybrids with human faces, women's hair, lions' teeth, and iron breastplates. They are led by a fallen angel named Abaddon, the Destroyer. These aren't just symbols, they're nightmare fuel. Revelation reads like the fever dream of someone caught between worlds, trying to translate terror into language. Yet it's been interpreted as prophecy, allegory, and cosmic warning all at once. The Ark of the Covenant itself contains mysteries. Beyond being a golden chest, it was said to have immense power, so much so that when Uzzah touched it to steady it, he was struck dead instantly. The text doesn't offer much explanation. The implication is clear. Certain things are too sacred, too dangerous to be handled casually. This tension between divine presence and human mortality runs through the Old Testament, like an electric current. Perhaps one of the most perplexing passages lies in the book of Genesis, where the sons of God take human women as wives, and their offspring become the Nephilim, giants, warriors of renown. The text offers no elaborate theology here, just a few lines that read like the opening of a fantasy novel. Who were these sons of God? Angels, divine beings? The ambiguity fuels centuries of speculation. The Bible doesn't clarify, it just leaves the door ajar, allowing myth and mystery to flood in. These moments aren't just biblical oddities, they're invitations to deeper inquiry. They reveal that sacred texts are not just manuals for morality, but vast tapestries of human experience, divine encounter, and cultural evolution. The strange parts, the talking animals, the angels in disguise, the judgment of bears, the cosmic battles, they're not mistakes or embellishments. They are signals from a world where reality was seen through a different lens, where the boundary between the earthly and the divine shimmered like heat over desert sand. And perhaps that is the real purpose of these strange parts. Not to confuse, but to provoke, not to answer, but to awaken. They remind us that the sacred has always included the strange. That faith isn't just about comfort and clarity. Sometimes it's about wonder. Sometimes it's about looking into the abyss and realizing you're not alone there. The Bible's strangest passages serve as riddles written in holy ink, urging us to read not just with our eyes, but with our imagination. They nudge us to reconsider what we think we know, not just about the Bible, but about reality itself. Why are these stories preserved at all? Why didn't the editors of the sacred text smooth them over? Omit them or explain them away? The answer may lie in the Bible's unapologetic honesty. It doesn't flinch at the bizarre. It doesn't sanitize the unsettling. Instead, it offers the raw, jagged edges of a world in tension with the divine, where miracles coexist with monsters, and holiness shares space with horror. Take, for instance, the curious law in Deuteronomy, stating that a woman must not wear men's clothing and vice versa. On the surface, it appears as a rule about gender expression. But dig deeper, and it speaks to a society attempting to define order amidst chaos. In a time when identity, power, and purity were intertwined, even clothing carried theological weight. The rule may seem archaic now, but it reflected a culture wrestling with boundaries, both social and spiritual. In another obscure episode, King Saul seeks out the witch of Endor to summon the spirit of the prophet Samuel. Yes, a seance happens in the Bible, and what's even more chilling is that it works. Samuel appears, speaks, and delivers a grim prophecy. This encounter opens a window into ancient Israel's complex views on necromancy, forbidden knowledge, and divine silence. Saul, once chosen by God, is now so desperate for guidance that he breaks the very laws he once upheld. And the result is a ghostly voice speaking judgment from beyond the grave. There's also the account in Acts where Paul preaches so long that a young man named Eutychus falls asleep, tumbles out a third-story window and dies. Paul rushes down, embraces him, and miraculously brings him back to life, then calmly returns to preaching. The story is almost comical in its delivery, but it's layered with deeper meaning. Life and death hang in the balance not just during battles or miracles, but in the everyday rhythm of faith. It suggests that the divine can break into even the most mundane moments. Consider also the ritual in Numbers involving the test for an unfaithful wife. A woman suspected of adultery is made to drink bitter water, mixed with dust from the tabernacle floor. If guilty, her abdomen swells and she becomes infertile. If innocent, nothing happens. This strange ordeal blurs the lines between law, magic, and divine judgment. It's deeply uncomfortable by today's standards, but in its time, it was seen as a divine polygraph, an attempt to bring hidden truths into the light through ritual means. These stories challenge modern readers because they force a confrontation with a worldview utterly foreign to contemporary logic. Yet that is where their power lies. They resist simplification. They are not neat parables with moral lessons tied in bows. They are wild, unfiltered glimpses into humanity's most profound questions: life, death, justice, guilt, and redemption, filtered through cultures that saw the world as far more mysterious than we often allow ourselves to believe today. When people approach the Bible expecting uniform clarity, they are often startled by its messiness. But this messiness is not a flaw. It's the very fingerprint of authenticity. Human beings are complicated. So are divine encounters. The strange parts of the Bible are not detours. They are deep wells that offer insight into how ancient minds wrestled with the divine, and in doing so, leave modern minds wrestling too. We see this again in the story of Jonah, swallowed by a great fish and surviving 3 days in its belly before being spit out on shore. It's often told as a children's tale, but beneath the surface is something much darker. Jonah isn't a model prophet. He's reluctant, defiant, and angry that God shows mercy to his enemies. His underwater entombment is a symbol of death and rebirth, of sinking into the depths of human resistance and emerging transformed. The fish is not just a miracle. It's a mirror of Jonah's inner descent. Even in the Psalms, poetic as they are, strange declarations abound. Rocks cry out. Mountains skip like rams. Trees clap their hands. These aren't metaphors meant to be dissected with clinical precision. They're expressions of a world suffused with divine energy, where every atom sings praise and the boundary between creation and Creator is vibrantly alive. The Bible's strangeness, then, is not random. It is part of its sacred rhythm. Strangeness is also present in silence. Consider the years between Jesus' childhood and his adult ministry, an entire span of decades left unrecorded. What happened during that time? Why the silence? The absence speaks as loudly as the words. It invites imagination, speculation, and contemplation. The Bible doesn't answer every question. It leaves space, sometimes unsettling space, for faith to stretch, for wonder to fill the gaps. Perhaps what's most astonishing is that through all this, people continue to return to these pages, not in spite of their strangeness, but because of it. We are not drawn only to what we understand. We are drawn to what haunts us, what stirs us, what whispers beyond the veil of reason. The strangest parts of the Bible have endured because they refuse to be tamed. They remind us that the divine, if real, must exceed our categories. That truth, if eternal, must be strange. So the next time you open the Bible, read not only with your intellect, but with your imagination. Allow the oddities to speak. Let the talking donkey ask you why you're beating your own stubborn thoughts. Let Ezekiel's wheels spin through the gears of your own mind. Let Elisha's bears and Paul's sleepwalkers and Revelation's beasts jolt you into seeing Scripture, not as a dusty rulebook, but as a living, breathing cosmos of mystery. Because if the divine did speak to humanity, why wouldn't it sound, at times, completely beyond our comprehension? And in that dizzying, wondrous strangeness, maybe that's where faith really begins.